The old good old boy ingenuity and boating, they go together like peanut butter and jelly, but sometimes the result can be a little closer to sardines and jam. Welcome back, guys, to this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. Now, of course, one of the most common places we're going to see that good old boy ingenuity is going to be when people are trying to have a little extra fun out on the water, but the second most common place we're going to see it, well, that's going to be in boat repairs and boat maintenance, and today we're going to talk about that, the importance of boat maintenance and doing it properly. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be times in your boating career where you're going to have to use that ingenuity, use the old duct tape and spit method to kind of get you by, but we don't want to do it too often because the last thing we want is things going wrong ruining our fun on the water.
To do it because it's fun. It's fun to do good stuff with my friend.
Now, many people will choose to do boat maintenance and repairs by taking their boat to the pros. Now, don't just take it to any shop, make sure to use a reputable place. The last thing you want to do is drop your boat off to get the proper service only to find out that person doesn't really know what they're doing, because nothing stinks worse than seeing the perfect opportunity to have some fun on the water only to have the prop slip.
Finish him. Flawless victory.
Kind of like that time you saw Fred standing on the dock and remembered that he used to talk smack about your 150 being on the back of the pontoon when he had a 300 on the back of his, and you knew it was the moment to strike. Now, if your prop wouldn't have been set up right, you might have missed your shot. So finding a reputable shop is key when trying to get service done on your boat. You may be asking yourself, well, how do I find a reputable shop? Well, if you've got friends in the boating community, ask them who they use, listen to their advice and their reviews, and use that stuff to help decide which shop is for you. Look at the old Google reviews as well, but don't let one bad review let you not go to that shop. Just because they said their throttle cable stuck because the shop installed a new one doesn't always mean that was exactly the case. Especially if the shop's got plenty of good reviews besides that to back it up, it's likely a reputable place with one person having a poor experience, and that experience can be caused by many different reasons. However, if you start seeing a bunch of horror story reviews about that shop, you probably want to stay away.
Hello, Mr. George. How much you pay for the new guy? $20? No, too much money.
Now, speaking of too much money, boat maintenance can be expensive, but this is still one of the things I would warn most people. It's one of the few things you don't really want to go cheap on. Now, when I say don't go cheap on it, I'm not saying you can't go buy a different part that necessarily didn't come from Yamaha. Of course you can, but if you do buy that part, make sure it comes from a reputable manufacturer. The last thing you want to do is go out and buy some knockoff part you've never heard of, as the result sometimes can be catastrophic. And another way I see people try to go cheap in boat maintenance from time to time is using non-marine parts. Now, I know this may sound like a nice way to save a few shekels, but the reality is it's still a really poor idea. That non-marine part, even though the specs may seem very similar to the marine version, just was not made with a marine application in mind, meaning it's likely going to have a reduced lifespan or possibly cause other issues. Now, the easiest way to save some coin if you're trying to be a little bit budget-friendly in boat maintenance, well, that's going to be doing the maintenance yourself. But this does come with its own set of headaches.
It doesn't help the pain.
Now, I fall into this category as well, where I wind up doing most of my own basic marine maintenance myself. I find this saves me a little bit of money, but more importantly, it saves me time. I feel like every time I drop my boat off at the dealership, it gets held hostage, and I never know when I'm going to be able to get my boat back. In fact, I've had my boat at dealerships many times where it sat for several months on end before I was able to get the vessel back in my hands. I find that a lot of people avoid doing their own maintenance because many people think they can't. They think they don't have the mechanical knowledge to do so. They don't have the special tools that are required to perform these tasks, or they may even think that it'll actually void their warranty if they do the service themselves. But one thing you'll learn really quick about this is none of that is true. In fact, most of the time if you do a Google search on what it takes to do your normal maintenance on your vessel, it's going to shock you how fast you can do it and how few tools are actually required to perform the task. And no, your warranty will not be voided just because you did the service. Now, there still are some downfalls to doing your own service, and the biggest downfall is going to be if something goes wrong during that service, or you mess something up during the service or forget to do something, there's nobody to blame but yourself, and I'm guilty of this as well. In fact, my most recent service I did to a watercraft that I own, I forgot to put the oil cap back on, and the low oil light came on because oil was spitting out of that cap, and nobody to blame but myself. But we're all human, of course we all make mistakes from time to time. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boneheaded Boaters of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Brian Schur, Charles Bartholf, Chris Maybeer, Coronal, David Brewer, D-Bree3, Isla Morada Coastal Adventures, Justin Hartwick, Murray Ballstein, Harvey, Q-Dog 700, Ramos Max, Sammy 4522 and Volkov did this week, and if you haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.